But if it did, that would be the point that having an armed populace would actually be useful.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so when I don't want to contradict. I mean, I'm pro-military, because where I grew up, there were a lot of Vietnam vets. I worked with them. I went to school with them. None of them were pro-government at all. They were all anti-government. They were all pro-gun. They were all. I mean, these were Vietnam vets. They came back. They were really messed up. I mean, I went to school with a guy who he was the gunner in a helicopter in Vietnam. And he was the most anti-government person I'd ever met in my entire life. I mean, most of my anti-government sentiment, if you could say it, was influenced by him. And I have a very strong respect for the military. I don't think that they're so mind programmed. I think that they're in that situation and they're being bombarded in the briefings with, we're liberating people and stuff like that. But I think that they're going out and they're seeing on the people's faces that they're hated. Every time they're running one of these checkpoints, everybody who drives by hands them their papers with this look of, if I could kill you, I would. And it eats them away. And it's why you see such a high suicide rate in the military over there. It's not they're not being killed because of insurgents, quote unquote. They're killing themselves because they see the atrocities that they're being asked to commit. They're realizing the bombardment in the briefings, the propaganda, the you're here, freedom, all this stuff is bullshit. They're really tired of it, and they're tired of killing people, and they're killing themselves because they feel guilty and culpable.
Well, that's why they had to turn around and recruit 200,000 mercenaries for Iraq.
That's
for example,
why.
You know what I mean? They had 100,000 soldiers and 200,000 mercenaries because the mercenaries will do it for
money.
They'll do it for the money because the propaganda is not good enough.
Kicks as well.
Because it turns out because people who join the military, people who willingly join the military, in my opinion, usually do it for honorable purposes, and they are honorable people. And I don't think that
they're being lied to.
They're being lied to. They're a tool like a gun. They're being misused by a psychopathic elite. And I do think that the reason that there's all these security companies being created is because this psychopathic elite realizes that they can't have such control over the military because those people aren't in it for the money.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see that in America, too. We're starting to see police officers who were that police lieutenant who got arrested at the Occupy protests. A lot of sheriffs in the United States are simply saying, no, we won't do that. So we're starting to see our own homebound paramilitary organizations, the police, the sheriffs, the deputies, who have a line where they say no. It may be why we already haven't been all rounded up and put in these camps that everyone's afraid of.
Yeah.
It's getting the military to work against the American people. Well, that's where they came from. That's going to be very difficult to do. So, like you said, they've got to go the more propaganda route. Which is why it's, I toyed around with the idea of even calling in because so many people have just made up their minds they don't think. They're going to get their opinion off the television or off the computer or off of Alex Jones or whatever crazy person out there tells them how to think. It almost seems like I don't want to say the show is a waste of time. It's not, but it's almost like, okay, so you get intelligent people together to talk about a particular topic. That really doesn't help when you have, 200 million drones who are just going to do whatever they're told to do.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, these people are kind of like the inert mass in a certain sense, and they are converted and they're constantly bombarded with all this propaganda, and that's definitely a negative facet of society. But also, I think that, our only real chance, aside from, people are saying like, oh, if the military comes in and does something, maybe we could have some revolt. But we really do have an opportunity to have a mental revolution, an educational revolution of people.
That's the only way it's going to be
effective. You don't have to be
effective.
violent about this stuff. You need to start working on educating people about the truth, getting them to think critically, and that is. We're not going to get, because look what happens. If every revolution happens, the minute the revolution's done, the next leaders are almost always worse than the first, and then you have to fight to get rid of them, and then you kind of get to this compromised state for a while, which is what we've been in the U.S. for the last couple hundred years, is the compromised state. After the Civil War, we kind of got into this compromise where, it's not so bad, not so good, and we maintain that. We try to maintain it. We fight to maintain it, and then at the end, it ultimately loses.
Exactly.
Sorry. So, okay. We got another caller coming in, so thank you very much for calling, Betsy. It was very awesome to hear from you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Betsy.
Thanks, Betsy.
Trucking.
We have another caller?
We do.
Hello?
Hello,
hey, good
hi.
buddy. How's it going?
It's going all right. How you doing, sir?
I am doing very good. Where are you calling from?
Hold on, wait. Let me get my headphones on.
Oh, shit, okay. Got your headphones on. Okay, so where are you calling from, man? I'm
calling from Fort Worth, Texas, man.
Ah, good, man. All right.
And what you got to tell us?
I was just chiming in. I'm a two-time combat veteran, and I think the problem. I think what's going to have to happen, as far as number one, what America is going to end up having to do like Iceland did, is overthrow the government. I mean, that's what's going to have to happen. I mean, it's not a maybe. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And the thing that I think that us conservatives need to continue to do is to continue to be consistent. You know, a lot of times conservatives, you know, we tend to stray away from the main issues. You know, we tend to entertain liberal propaganda when really we shouldn't even entertain that nonsense. You know, and I think that because the fact of the matter is, a lot of soldiers have gotten out the military.
Yep.
A lot of soldiers have gotten out the military, and there's something wrong with your connection or something that keeps fizzing up.
No, we hear you fine.
We got you. Keep going.
Yeah, we
hear you. But it keeps
anyway, what's going to have to happen is the fact that the soldiers, like myself, I was the kind of soldier where, you know, I was very opinionated because I spoke the truth, and that's not what they liked, you know. But there wasn't just me like that. There were more soldiers like that. And the soldiers like me that have gotten out and that see through the malarkey and the skullduggery of the government. I think that we can have an effect on other soldiers and sailors and Marines, you know. But I think that's what's going to have to happen, you know, because the thing about liberals, I'll give it to liberals, man. I mean, they've been consistent in their issues, and they stuck to it, you know. And that's a lot of times the crap they'll push is Republicans need to cater more to minorities, when that's really, again, that's malarkey, because prior to the 1960s, most minorities, especially me being a black American, were Republicans. So that again is liberal propaganda, and I think that a lot of the problem is plain and simple. You know, is that people, like the young lady was saying, are not researching or not engaging, and I think that people are gonna have to see Obama for what he is. You know, and one friend of mine, who was on a radio show last night, he said, you know, I'm a firm believer that I think. You know, we were just putting ideas out there, and he was saying that if Alan West ran for president in 2016, that he feel that that he should cater to minorities, because let's be honest, most blacks are just going to vote either because of Democratic Party ticket or skin color, and that's just how it is, you know, and it's a fact that many don't want to accept, but it's true, you know, and I mean, that's just my whole opinion on it. You know, I said.
If I could chime in, bro, for just a minute, because I think that a lot of people might misinterpret what he's saying, but what he's saying is fundamentally true about the Republicans, about conservatives, and their flip-flopping on certain issues, right, and adopting liberal stances. So you have, you know, from the perspective of liberals as being like kind of like Fabianist, pacifist, kind of like middle-class people who are all like, let's get rid of the guy, blah, 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 you know, whatever it is. And then you have the conservative people who have a long time been staunch Republicans, which is about let's maintain the republic, maintain the rights, maintain the order of government. You have these people that will start changing their arguments, you know, into like, oh no, it's for hunting, it's for game. They'll change their arguments in the gun control issue specifically, because that's what the topic is here, not necessarily that. They'll change their arguments to pacify the opposing party because they don't want to look bad, or they don't want to look like they represent the virtues and values they do. And that's having a conservative party, which I am a conservative type of person, having those people, back off from their principles whenever some emotional kind of like liberal type of individual. I'm just using those terms. Those terms have a meaning in this specific context.
Right.
You might call them Fabianist pacifists or whatever. They change their principles and what they think is right. The right for, like Betsy was saying, with women's self-defense. The rights of minorities and things like that, of protecting those things, of the rights of what the government was built on. The government was built on this idea of inalienable rights for the protection of minorities, and that was a republicanism idea. That was not a democratic ideal. That was a Republican ideal from Thomas Jefferson with his democratic republicanism. So, I mean, what he's saying is essentially true as long as you hear the words and understand what they mean. So I just wanted to jump in and say that because a lot of people, when they hear it's conservatives versus liberals, and they try to dismiss the argument, but what he's saying is true. From my opinion, I just wanted to sit up there.
Oh no, I understand that. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't want to confuse your audience. and I think that and on gun control, like you said, I think it's again foolishness because we all know why the Second Amendment was put in place. It's many reasons. To basically, in case a revolt happened, the people could defend themselves against the government. I mean, this is something that a lot of people don't even know. And I mean, it's like you said. I think that when the liberals get in there and start talking about magazines, and I mean, and that's foolishness. It's foolishness because you as an American have the right to arm yourself, and I think that a lot of another thing that I think that's hurting us is the fact that I'll see people, and I'm a very spiritual person. I definitely believe in my God and Lord Jesus Christ, But I think a lot of times we have been dumbed down by religion, and we'll use this excuse, well, God is my protector. I mean, let's be real. You have to arm yourselves. I mean,
God helps those who help themselves.
Exactly. Peter had a sword. And I mean,
he did.
And I think that's just the issue, man. But on these issues, conservatives are going to have to stick with their guns. And right now, we need to clean the Republican Party out because right now I think it's a bunch of hidden liberals in there, and that's just my opinion.
So what do you think the solution is then to the problems as you see them in the U.S.? What do you think the solution is?
Let's keep it on the gun control.
Yeah, in terms of gun control. You talk
Are you for it? Are you against it?
I'm against gun control, man. I mean,
exactly.
Control guns, that's insane, I mean, you have the right to bear arms, man, and I don't think the government should tell you need a 10-round magazine and lock it up in a cage. And I mean, they're basically disarming you while still trying to arm you. If you tell me I got to put my weapon in a cage, well, somebody breaks inside my house, I got to go unlock the cage. I got to go do all that. That's foolishness. Why can't I have my shotgun sitting next to me behind my dresser where it's easily accessible and I can take care of business when somebody breaks in my house?